The battle of the strongest has finally come to an end, and there has been a lot of disrespect towards Sukuna that I want to address. Even though I know a lot of them are trolls, and I have done a little bit of trolling myself, I still find it crazy that a lot of people believe that Sukuna was a better character in Yuji's body than in Megumi's body, which is just wrong because nothing changed about him. In this video, we're going to talk about Sukuna's performance during that fight as well as during the Shibuya arc and his character as a whole. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. Let's get into it. First thing first, let's talk about the main complaints regarding Sukuna's character. A huge amount of people were disappointed in him because of his cowardly way of fighting against Gojo, while the other side simply deemed it as intelligence and being smart. Personally, I am part of the second group and I wanna agree that it's just him being smart, but I still think it is fair to point out how shameless Sukuna was during that fight. Ever since we were introduced to his character, everything about Sukuna screams dishonesty, and I found it stupid how people really expected him to have a fair fight with Gojo while using no tricks. On the contrary, Gojo has been shown to overpower anybody. He never needed any sort of tricks and he always struck me as a smart and fair guy. So even though you would see a lot of strategy based things in Gojo's fighting style, you wouldn't really see him do any sort of cheap tricks, meaning it was to expect that Gojo was way stronger than Sukuna. Sukuna being smart and being the way he is, it was to expect that he was going to use something to be on Gojo's level, but Sukuna having to heavily rely on somebody else's technique, as well as hiding, jumping and other tactics, people think he isn't the same menace that he was in Shibuya. But the answer to that is very simple. Sukuna was not fighting Gojo in Shibuya. All Sukuna did during his massacre was threatening civilians as well as weaker sorcerers and fight Jogo. And since Sukuna likes all this massacre, it looked like a straight menace doing everything he was doing in Shibuya. But finally having to go all out against somebody like Gojo, Sukuna now has to show his true colors. Sukuna was never honest, he just never needed to use his tricks when he was in Yuji's body. He never had any opponent that was strong enough to stand up to him, meaning he never had to worry about other strategies. The same thing could be seen after he got Megumi's body. The way Sukuna blazed Ryu gave me the same vibe as Sukuna in Shibuya, as well as the way he punched Yuji when he first took the body. At 15 fingers, he was able to fight awakened Maki and liberated Yuji at the same time. Even though he was weakened, he still put up a good fight and I would even say that he had the advantage. And again, people would like to bring the fact that he had to trick Anna to free himself from the angel's attack. But Sukuna never faced anything like Jacob's ladder in Yuji's body. Ever since the beginning of the series, Sukuna has always been the same. In both bodies, he still beats weaker opponents with a smile on his face, no difficulty as well as no tricks. And even though you can say he used some tricks against Yorozu, I don't think he needed them. I feel like he was trying to get accustomed to the 10 Shadows technique. If Sukuna had to fight Gojo in Yuji's body, he would also look like a fraud. And even though he wouldn't have access to the 10 Shadows and most of the tricks that he used during the fight, I'm pretty sure Sukuna is smart enough to come up with something to counter Gojo. But again, it's only in Megumi's body that he had to fight somebody that was stronger than him, and it's only in Megumi's body that he had access to all of these hacks. People also like to bring up the fact that Sukuna is actually panicking in this fight, or even the fact that he is always hiding behind Mahoraga. All these are parts of the tricks that he is able to use, and he is going to use anything at his disposition to beat somebody that's stronger than him. We've never seen Sukuna lose his cool before because he never had to. He was always fighting weaker opponents. You never saw him have some real challenge until now. And even though you can say that Yuji and Maki were a challenge, they were equal when Sukuna was nerfed and didn't have to use his powers. But when he actually gets into a fight where he needs all of his abilities to win and still fails to win, it makes sense for him to start panicking, and the old Sukuna would do the same thing if he found himself in that same situation. I know that I said before that I didn't think Sukuna was necessarily a fraud, but I now understand what people mean when they call him a fraud, even though I don't agree with it. The reason why Sukuna is being called a fraud is because of everything he did in the past. When we see Sukuna in Shibuya, when we see Sukuna during the calling games, or even early in the show, all Sukuna did was stomp on people and talk a lot of shit, and he even threatened Gojo. So you would think that he was strong enough to beat Gojo normally, and people really think that the way he said he was going to beat Gojo was fair and square. And now that he has to use any and everything he can use to beat him, Sukuna is being called a fraud because he created an image and built up a reputation that he wasn't able to live up to apparently. But what they fail to understand is that, as I said before, dishonesty is Sukuna's main character trait. We couldn't really see through that at the beginning of the series because nothing was shown. But as you get to know more about Sukuna's character, you will know that he's unpredictable and very dishonest. Like for example when he refused to heal Junpei when Yuji was fighting Mahito, or even the two girls that were serving Geto. After telling them that they can make a request, he immediately killed them. Sukuna Sukuna is not a person that you can trust, and people really thought that he was just going to use his fist against Gojo. As a jujutsu sorcerer, victory is victory by any means possible. Sukuna saying that he's going to beat Gojo means that he's going to beat him with whatever he has to use whenever the fight comes. Him not having Megumi's body at the time or not knowing about Megumi's abilities doesn't change the fact that he had the body when he ended up fighting Gojo, and now he's going to use anything at his disposition to fight him. So like I said multiple times before, Sukuna is shameless. Sukuna is a coward if you want, but he isn't a fraud, unless you don't think a fraud is a bad thing. Because I saw people say that Sukuna is a fraud, but it is fine for him to be a fraud, and that depends on your definition of the word, so I guess that's cool. I just don't understand the people that think that Sukuna's character got ruined because he did that. There has never been anything pure to be expected out of Sukuna, and yet people expected him to fight against Gojo like he was fighting against Jogo. Not only Jogo was way weaker than him, but Jogo did not have hacks like Infinity. Sukuna is weaker than Gojo physically, but on top of that he has to work around Infinity, which is probably the most annoying ability to deal with in the whole series. And I think there are different layers to how broken that ability is. So let's say Gojo's Infinity was a regular shield, then you will have to break it, but it isn't even a shield or a barrier that you can touch. There's just an infinite amount of space between you and him, infinite amount of space that you would never reach. But then you would need to blitz him to hit him before he puts the shield up, right? But not only is it impossible to blitz him because of his reflexes and the 6 eyes, but it's also a barrier that is there at all time, meaning that he doesn't have to worry about putting it up every time. You trying to blitz him or trying anything too reckless will result in you dying. That is how annoying this ability is to deal with. And Sukuna is simply fighting different ways to fight this broken ability. Now understand, Gojo's broken ability is his ability, an ability that he was born with and that he worked hard to perfect, while Sukuna is using somebody else's ability. But at this point, with all respect to Megumi, can we even call it his technique? And ironically, Sukuna is probably the best 10 shadow user of all time, and he only had the ability for 1 month. He was able to use the Shikigamis in the most creative ways possible, also able to use the Shikigamis abilities without summoning them, something Megumi could not do. He was also creative with the way he fused multiple Shinigamis. And finally, he tamed Mahoraga, something that was almost impossible for anybody. Before that, summoning Mahoraga would simply mean that you're killing yourself as well as the enemy. Sukuna can use Mahoraga to protect him and help him offensively. He can also switch places with Mahoraga in the shadows, or even use the wheel on himself or on somebody else. I don't think it is crazy to say that Sukuna is the best 10 shadow user, and it is fine if you say that it's still not his ability. What I'm saying is that it was still impressive for an ability that he only had for 1 month, considering it's an ability as complicated as the 10 shadows. Him having the ability makes him fair for him to use it against Gojo. But before we end this video, we have to celebrate Gojo's victory, because Gojo defeated Mahoraga and Sukuna. And even though I know Sukuna isn't dead, I think the fight is over. I think it is around that time that Kenjaku or somebody else will do something, and I highly doubt everything will go back to a one-on-one. So I'm pretty sure and happy that Gojo is victorious. It was crazy to me that everybody doubted Gojo. 2-3 chapters ago, I made a video saying that Gojo will win, and even though it wasn't guaranteed for Gojo to win, my only reasoning behind it was that it's very unlikely, and Gege often takes the unorthodox route, so I expected Gojo to win just because it was unlikely, and also because I wanted him to win and I was on his side since the beginning. Unfortunately, I ended up not posting the video because I realized how many Gojo vs Sukuna videos I made, and I didn't want my channel to be carried by this fight alone. I didn't want my channel to heavily depend on that event alone. Since my channel is supposed to be based on character analysis videos, I wanted to focus on that because I realized that Sukuna's name was running my channel, so I had to do something else. But for the people that are interested to see what I was saying, I just put the clip at the end of the video so you can see. Let me know what you think about Sukuna's character, and do you think it was way better when he was in Yuji's body, or do you agree with me that he's still the same, it's just that he has different circumstances? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, get this video to 200 likes or any video you wanna suggest, and sub to the channel if you enjoy the content that I put out, and only if you do. I'm trying to reach 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I'm counting on y'all for that. But I appreciate y'all for making it to this point, and I will see y'all next time. Peace. In the recent event of Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo ends up being in a 3v1 against Sukuna. This leads people to believe that students should jump in the fight to help Gojo. Not only I don't think that this is going to happen, but I also believe that Gojo will win the fight. This is not any sort of cope or anything along those lines. I know exactly what the fight is looking like currently, and I find it disturbing that everybody is already counting Gojo out. The whole point of the fight is for it to not be predictable, and y'all think something as predictable as Gojo dying because he's supposed to die would make sense? Me personally, I'm not buying that. I'm not saying that it's impossible for him to die, I just don't think it will happen. or at least not the way we think it's going to happen. But even though I'm on Gojo's side, some of the Gojo fans are also disappointing to me, because at least the Sukuna fans believe in their character. It's just that they defend him a little too hard. In the mind of 90% of the community, Gojo has already lost. And even though some of them have good reasons for that, I'm talking about the other half. The other half is simply saying it doesn't look good for Gojo, so he will lose. How many times did it not look good for Gojo? And how many times did nothing happen? The whole fight is supposed to be predictable. So can't you just choose who you want to root for and then just root for him? People always want to say if Sukuna loses, Gojo at least proved that he was better. But like, why are we even talking about this? Because I guarantee you Gojo and Sukuna are tied right now. Sukuna simply has a better strategy and a better vision of his victory. Like, imagine watching a basketball game that is tied at halftime and immediately stop believing in your team whenever the other team pulls out a new strategy, even though the game is still tied and that nothing happened yet. It's looking better for Sukuna, but he didn't take less damage than Gojo. If anything, he took more damage than him. There is also the fact that Gojo is still trolling and appears to be unfazed against 3 people. Like, not everything has to be a debate. We could just watch the fight and enjoy it. The fight probably has at least 3 chapters left and there's still more to see and more to enjoy. There are more beautiful plays from Gojo to come and more tricks for Sukuna to come. Sukuna haven't even used his technique yet, and Gojo seems to be hiding some tricks himself. To me, the chances of victory are still 50-50, but I believe Gojo will end up winning, and him being against the odds is what makes me believe even more. I'ma keep it 100 with y'all, I would not care if Gojo lost this fight. To me, this is just a fun experience, but instead of always saying I don't know or I'm not sure, like I always do to always make sure that everybody understands that what I say is not confirmed, I'd rather have some fun myself and say that Gojo will win the fight, and this time I'm 100% sure. If I'm wrong, well, I'm wrong. It's not like anything is going to happen. If anybody wanna follow me on this and just root for Gojo, that's fine, and if you don't, I don't even care. We're just watching an interesting fictional fight and enjoying it, and in the end that's where it stops. I'm on Gojo's side, but I'm very unbiased. You can easily see that with the multiple Sukuna videos that I made, where I was either giving him his props or defending him. I think the writing is good, the fight is good, and both characters are being portrayed exactly as they should. I just think you Sukuna fans need to be more honest with yourselves. And in the future, I'ma try to make less Sukuna vs Gojo related videos. I want my channel to be geared towards story analysis and character analysis. I do not want it to solely depend on one fight, because I realized that Sukuna and Gojo both have more videos than everybody else on my channel, and I only recently started making JJK videos. So in the future, expect more videos related to characters like Kashimo, Hakari, Choso, or even Mahito. I want my content to be about different topics, and Sukuna is currently running my channel. But I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate y'all for making it to this point and listening to everything I had to say.